Welcome to this week's Movie Math, where In the Heart of the Sea was hardly a whale of a box office tale. Instead, the pick, much like the crew of the flick, found itself hopelessly adrift in the calm before the storm. Yes, at this point, it's just waiting to be swept away by the Force. That means the $100+ million that Warner Brothers invested in the movie, and that's a conservative estimate before prints and advertising, will sink to the bottom of the sea, along with Chris Hemsworth's career. I mean, seriously, how much longer can his management team use the excuse he just hasn't found the right vehicle? Rush, Black Hat, and now In the Heart of the Sea? Plus, he hosted SNL this weekend and brought in record low ratings for the season. And I think we all know that The Huntsman is really Charlize's franchise. Marvel's clearly worried they might not be immune to Hemsworth's box office poison either. Thor and Thor the Dark World are on the lower end of the MCU box office spectrum, and while many have joked they were really Loki's movies, now Marvel is adding Mark Ruffalo's Hulk and Cate Blanchett, possibly as the ruler of the Asgardian underworld, for additional support. And one has to really feel for Ron Howard, who's worked so hard to reimagine himself as a director, only to see those efforts go unnoticed due to putting Hemsworth front and center. Surely Howard is glad to be making his fifth film with good old Tom Hanks, Inferno. Although, just as Spielberg has recently learned, Hanks ain't so reliable himself these days either. In the Heart of the Sea was billed as the story that inspired Moby Dick, yet clearly audiences perceived that as the story that needed a lot of embellishment. Thanks, Herman Melville! In fact, In the Heart of the Sea couldn't even win the weekend against Mockingjay Part 2 in its fourth weekend. Yet Mockingjay Part 2 shouldn't get too full of itself either, as 4 weeks in, it's still lagging more than $100 million behind the first Hunger Games, and it's already opened in China. BTT viewer Christian tweeted me over the weekend to ask how much Joy would need to open with to be considered a success, which is a tough call as David O. Russell's movies usually open in limited release, while Joy is opening wide on Christmas Day, a box office frame that The Force Awakens will surely dominate. That said, Jennifer Lawrence should be able to beat at least one, or preferably both, Will Smith or the combo of Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. Speaking of BTT viewers and Twitter, be sure to tweet me pictures of yourself at the theater holding your Star Wars movie stub, and you have to be in the picture. If I like your tweet, that means I've downloaded your pic and you'll be included in an epic montage on next week's Movie Math. Then, even with awards season officially underway with the Golden Globes nominations announced on Thursday, things still aren't exactly sizzling. For instance, The Big Short, one of the most nominated films Thursday, did post the second biggest per theater average for the year after Steve Jobs, but it was only a somewhat impressive 90 grand. A hot awards contender really should be debuting with a per theater average of 100 grand plus, especially a star-studded affair like The Big Short. Although, to be fair, Adam McKay has no pull in the specialty market yet, plus it opened in 8 theaters, double the usual 4. Fellow nominees Carol, The Danish Girl, Room, and Youth all expanded their theater counts and saw some box office gains, and even non-nominees Legend and Macbeth followed suit. Yet Trumbo, a huge surprise with all its SAG and Golden Globe nominations, lost some theaters and dropped a bit. Obviously, audiences still aren't convinced it's worth their time or movie theater dollars. Elsewhere in the specialty market, Chirac, with no nominations, fell over 50% in just its second weekend. Are audiences tossing this Spike Lee joint already, or just waiting for it to hit Amazon? Either way, movies are proving to be tougher to crack than TV series for the top streaming services. And on that note, it would be nice to know how many people opted to stay home and stream Adam Sandler's new movie this weekend instead of going out to see Chris Hemsworth's. One also has to wonder how it's performing compared to Beasts of No Nation, which Netflix revealed was watched by 3 million subscribers in its first 2 weeks, something they revealed to stave off bad box office buzz. Will Netflix reveal the ridiculous 6's viewership to stave off just plain old bad buzz? Surely Sandler would love to silence his harshest critics with proof that his fan base is alive and well, even if they are in hiding in the anonymity of their digital devices. As for the rest of the top 10, naturally, nominees Spotlight and Brooklyn enjoyed the strongest holds, along with The Martian just outside the top 10. The Night Before also held up well as audiences factored the holiday flick into their holiday plans. Speaking of holiday movies, after an unusually strong debut last weekend for a horror film and the post-Thanksgiving frame, Krampus continued to impress with a better-than-usual hold for a horror film, dropping just around 50%. Meanwhile, The Good Dinosaur and Creed are both approaching the century mark, but it's anyone's guess what will happen to them and the rest of the movies currently in theaters when Star Wars The Force Awakens finally hits theaters along with Sisters and The Road Chip. Disney has been trying to temper expectations, reminding everyone that holiday picks typically don't open as big as summer picks. That said though, 208.8 is the number to beat both for the year and all time, but the biggest holiday openings haven't been able to get past 158. As for Universal and Fox's efforts to counter-program, well, they aren't expected to be very fruitful. And that's the weekend box office. I'm Grace Randolph, and we just did some movie math. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll go beyond the trailer for these other top movies.